expressed on the internet would be censored.
We are live. We are live. This is real. Welcome back to Unauthorized Opinions, UOPod.com. Like, share, subscribe.
It's pure propaganda and it's super cringe, by the way.
I literally went to the polls with nothing in mind. I saw a can of orange soda in the parking lot. And I was like, yeah, there we go. An unopened can of orange soda just chilling in the parking lot. I was like, yeah, I got to vote for Trump, dude.
Your podcast sucks. It's mental, mate. It's absolutely mental.
I'll be honest, I thought it was kind of offensive when you talk so much about the Loch Ness Monster.
Political climate.
And Andrew, treat yourself, okay? Especially if you start, I don't know, getting in good with homeless people.
Unauthorized Opinions, streaming everywhere at uopod.com. Cockle-doodly-doodly-doo, man.
I hit the trigger words.
Yeah, you just got back from Las Vegas. Las Vegas was the trigger word. I'm not sure why the system shut us off at Las Vegas. Continue what you're saying.
Yeah, we were just down there for the Memorial Day long weekend. The busiest city in America is what it was, and rocked a show with Brian Holtzman at Wise Guys Comedy Club.
How has the trip in the United States been? What's the difference between touring in the United States and in Canada? How have the Americans been treating you? Obviously, everybody says Canadians are super polite. I find politeness everywhere in the United States as well. What's the biggest difference?
The biggest difference is everything. The air. The air is even sweeter down there. First off, Canada is no longer a country. Canada is an economic containment zone, and you can really feel just how stifling it is on all levels. I'm a bit of an empath in that I can feel what other people are feeling, and the negative energy that's out in Canada right now is off the charts. People are miserable and dour, and there's a sense of foreboding doom. Whereas in America, it's a nice place, and just everything about it. The colors are brighter, the food tastes better, your value is exponentially through the roof just on everything. There may be a bit more of a price, but when you go to dinner, you're actually full when you leave the restaurant.
That sums it up pretty nicely. Now, when I went there, I have to agree. It feels more free. Maybe it wouldn't in downtown Manhattan or Los Angeles or something, but you can almost feel that you're sort of left to your own devices in a good sense. That somebody's not waiting for you to commit hate speech, for example. And
yeah,
the roads are more smartly built. The cities are better planned. What has it been like for you to come back to Canada? And has the latest attempt at canceling Sam Walker, were you able to forget about that on your trip? Am I traumatizing you by bringing it back up? Take us through that as the next step of the saga in The People versus the Danger Cats.
Not at all. I don't mind at all. This isn't traumatizing. This is life. And I am a professional stand-up comedian. I am one of the three members of the Danger Cats, the new icons of Canadian comedy, bar none. We are by far the best comedians rocking in Canada, and now we are making inroads to America. And they don't just let you have a work visa as a comedian and go down there. You need to prove that you're an alien of exceptional ability. And so we've really earned this through our touring of Canada and from our audience's reaction and support from the fans that have come to all our shows. And the cancellation, we went to every city they didn't want us in over the last 4 months when this all started blowing up. And we did all our dates. We had to do alternate venues and maybe smaller places, but the crowds were incredibly receptive. And afterwards, the people came up and were incredibly grateful that we ran the gauntlet of these Bolshevik censors that are working for whatever powers that be in Canada that are trying to silence any, what's the proper word that I'm looking for? Any subversive thoughts and words. And we're Canadians. It's the most dangerous profession in the world is to be a comedian right now in Canada, because we've been doing this for the last 2.5, almost 3 years. We've been rocking crowds. People have had a great time. And it wasn't until we started gaining some real traction and selling out large venues and touring clear across the Canada from the West Coast to the East Coast that we somehow were deemed evil, horrible people. And the government media has started slandering and libeling us without any receipts for that. They don't have anything that passes muster as far as committing of crimes or anything. They couldn't even tell you a single joke that we do. They've just been sicked upon us by somebody, by dark forces, and now they are trying to ruin our lives. And we are having probably the most fun we've ever had doing comedy in this climate, because we approach every show as if it's our last, and we give the audience what they came to see, and they're loving it. They're absolutely loving it, and we love them. But we have had to migrate to touring down in the States now, because the venues and politically it's just too much heat right now.
Now, the original cancellation attempt that I spoke with your compatriot in a previous episode was that it was surrounding the unmarked grave. Not weeks later, after protests, did it once again get revealed that nothing was found through $8 million of government testing and research. Now, the next thing, which is a seemingly misunderstood thought from the audiences, is surrounding former, I think we can say, convicted serial killer Robert Pickton. And once again, a joke about that. Can you bring the audience up to speed onto what the latest attempts to bring you guys down is over, you making fun of a serial killer? And actually, we can touch on the audience misunderstanding what you're actually advocating for as well.
So it's not the audience misunderstanding. It's government paid activists that are there to basically they're grifters. They have their own scam going on. Is they get funding for many different things, and one of the things they're being funded for is to professionally protest us. These are not organic protests. Especially the first one was in Vancouver, and when you show up with speakers and former gang members as hired muscle and a bunch of actors from central casting of they thems and people that are downtrodden drug addicts that got roped into this for $18 to $20 an hour to show up, it becomes painfully obvious that this is a campaign of silence is what they want. And the comedians in Canada, by and large, are standing by in abject terror and horror watching what is happening to us, because we set the measuring stick on what a show should be and how to conduct yourself professionally and how to travel across this country, giving the best damn show you can to the working class of this country. And nobody had a problem with us. And there's been very few actual professional comedians that have voiced any support or opposition to what's going on. They're just terrified. They're watching this go on and know that if they can do this to us, they can do this to them. And eventually one of their jokes will run afoul of the Thought Police and the Rainbow Brigade, and they'll be in the exact same boat we are. We just have more of a reputation, and we're much better showmen than they are. And we have a a very enthusiastic audience that supports us and is willing to run the gauntlet of the threats. And that's another thing is what's happened with the canceling of the venues is violent threats against the venue. That's been what'll always scare somebody. It works. Violence works. And they know this. And I know that if I was to threaten anybody, I would be able to hear the police sirens start up at the station and hear it all the way to my front door. So they are definitely on the wrong side of history, whereas we are 100% on the right side of history, and time will prove us, as over the last 4 years.
So the outrage is surrounding, and let me know if you don't want to talk about this. I'm sensing you not wanting to specifically address it.
No, I just you asked me like 5 or 6 questions, and I'm doing my best to answer them one at a time. So
I'll ask more specifically that. Go ahead.
Let's just start at the beginning. So over the last it must be like 4 or 5 years, I've been telling a Robert Pickton joke. And people forget about this guy. He went into jail in about 2006, convicted of six murders is what they pinned on him, and he's doing life in Canada. But in Canadian jails, after 25 years, you automatically get a parole hearing. So this guy has been forgotten, and you know me, I like to bring to people's attention very dark and horrible things, and make jokes about them and take away that power of what this guy has done to his victims and the country at large, because we are known the world over as they all know about the pig farmer. And yeah, I've been telling a banger of a joke, and it's been ripping up audiences for the last 4 or 5 years. And then a year ago, I hired a designer to design a t-shirt, and then when his parole came up, that was when the politicians hit the panic button and deflected their responsibility by putting it on us. They focused on the t-shirt and castigated us as bad, horrible people. And let me tell you something, Andrew. I knew that we were striking a nerve when the premier of British Columbia takes time out of his busy day of counting bodies at the morgue of fentanyl overdoses from government-funded drugs that they gave out to junior high kids. And he goes and takes the time to do a press conference. And apparently he's a connoisseur of stand-up comedy in this country, and asks us to apologize for a joke that he's never even heard of, that his little minions have penciled in and gave him his Coles notes to tell to the people. That was when everything kind of collapsed as far as our venues, and we had to start going to alternate means. But that was what it was. And to quote Shakespeare, "The lady doth protest too much, methinks." Because when David Ebby's flapping his yap, you know that somebody above him is like, shut these guys down, because now people are investigating the history and the fairy tale story that is Robert Pickton. Robert Pickton is the Forrest Gump of Canadian serial killers. He has been everywhere, done everything, and he's been quietly tucked away in jail as the fall guy, taking the blame for no less than 50 bodies discovered at his farm. And let's just go with the official narrative that the majority of them were sex workers. And I got to call bullshit on 50 women, because there's definitely statistically impossible that there wasn't one trans man in that body pile. So the police were able to tie up all their cases that had not been closed in the Lower Mainland in a nice tight bow, and Robert Pickton became the fairy tale serial killer of Canada. There is no way that he acted alone. No way. Impossible. It's scientifically and mathematically impossible to disappear that many women on your own.
What's really interesting about that, about the, the latest government attack, and it is a government attack when the Premier of British Columbia, for the American viewers, the governor, comes out and says, "Shut these comedians down. They're mean." Like that's what we're talking about, is people being mean in a joke, as they've
it's not
established.
mean. I'm being mean to Robert Pickton.
Exactly. That's what I wanted to ask you. On one hand, just like Brendan's joke, the joke here and the things that you've been saying, if people actually bothered to go and look and find and listen to what you've been saying on this topic, which I believe on at least one podcast there's about 15 to 20 minutes on, you were actually advocating, just as you are here, for further investigation so that people's families can get the justice they deserve, as opposed to an alleged cover-up where the government is just saying, "Hey, look, we found one guy. Let's do it. Let's just do it all in one fell swoop." People aren't actually paying attention to what you guys are actually saying about these things. Am I right? And it shows in the reaction to it.
Exactly. And these are people that would never come to our show. They would never darken the door and support any of the venues that they're having them cancel. It's not like if you don't have the Danger Cats, you will be rewarded in perpetuity with loyal customers. Like, these people aren't even, it's a very small, well-funded group that is doing this as well. This is not organic grassroots. This is paid agitators. And the fact of the matter is it's been multiple politicians have spoken up about this. And that's how you know they've lost control of the narrative. And now it's, they totally blew it. They absolutely blew it when they came after us this hard, because it showed how scared they are of people actually looking into this. And now there is a literal army of people across the internet that are combing the archives, going over the details of what the Pickton farm actually was. It wasn't just like this desolate farm. They had an after-hours club there called Piggy's Palace. That was anybody in the Lower Mainland in the 90s was out there partying. There are many politicians that had private gatherings there. There were raves, there were rock concerts. It was a highly organized and a highly trafficked place. There was a lot of people coming and going from that place. It wasn't just old Willie on his old pig farm, just left to his own devices, hunting people on the downtown east side. I'm sure he was, but that was why he's a caricature of a serial killer, by the way. Like, just his whole phenotype and the footage they have of him and the grisly details. And I want to go back to 2006 when his trial was going on. I was living in Vancouver at the time, and there was the very first trigger warnings in newspapers were enacted on his stories, and there was a publication ban that people forget about. They forget about the publication ban that was happening, and you actually learned more about it by going to American news because of the stranglehold they had on it at the time. And American newscasters were spreading this around the world because it is a fascinating, grisly, and dark story. Which, if it bleeds, it leads, as they say in the news world. And so even back then, there was a massive suppression. They got him in jail, and he was quietly just living out his life. And then old Sammy Dubbs comes in and starts rocking the boat. And I dare say that I am personally responsible for the attack on Robert Pickton.
I want to shift gears a little bit. I know you're on the pulse of the biggest issues of the day with the U.S. Election coming up. They have a similar crisis going on as in Canada, and I think it's the biggest issue in Canada. Whilst theirs might be about illegal immigration, I think ours is very soft legal immigration. What is your sense of that for this country? Do you think that it's as big of an issue as myself or others may think? Do you think it's overblown? Do you think it's the biggest issue of our time? What is your thought?
So there are many gigantic issues in this country, and personally, when I was in the trades out in Vancouver, I was working in the drywall industry, and things were booming up until right before 2010. Like even after the economic downturn in 2008, all the bailouts and stuff like that, I was top of my trade, and I was working, and we were doing high rises in Vancouver. And then everything had to be ready for the Winter Olympics in 2010. You remember those?
Yes, of course. The native mascots at all, and the toonies under the ice, or the loonies.
Quachi, yeah, Quachi. That was my favorite. So Quachi, you're canceled. Sorry, bud. You have to go back to the mountains and snowboard in shame. But everything was booming for the Olympics, but everything had to be cleared for security by Halloween 2009, and then for like the security purposes, and then everything was really quiet. And then I went back to work in 2010, but it was for $10 less an hour. And when you start doing the math on that, that's $80 less a day. That's $400 less a week. That's $1,600 less a month. And I was absolutely stunned. And I looked around the industry, and what had happened is it was money laundering from a certain nationality and group had imported massive amounts of unskilled workers. And these guys were showing up in crews of 10 or 20, working for like pennies an hour, dollars a day. And they weren't beating me out of the job. I wasn't being out craftsmanshiped. And I was a master at my trade. And these guys would just go in and fuck up the whole job site. And then they'd have one guy that was really good, and he just kind of fix it up. But it was a completely inferior product. And it was money laundering for one of the temples. One of the major temples that's what they were doing. They underbid every major job in the lower mainland at the time by hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars less. And yeah, I went from making a living wage to barely being able to survive. And that was, Andrew, that is going back 14 years that this was a problem. And also the buildings I was working on were basically living mausoleums. They were being made for Chinese mainlanders that were laundering their money by buying real estate in the lower mainland. And I know this because the Chinese Communist Party is godless. It worships itself. But like everything in life, and what we're seeing a lot in the last 4 years, is people need to attach themselves to a new religion, even if it's not technically classified as religion. So the Chinese are very, by and large, superstitious, and they believe in unlucky numbers and things like that. And the buildings I was working on had no number 4s in them, because apparently in their culture, number 4 is horribly unlucky. So there was no 4th floor. There was no 14th floor. There was no P4. There was no, unit 2204 on the buildings. And these buildings basically would just sit empty. Like, they are empty mausoleums with nobody in them. And that was all the way back in 2010 that was going on. So I can only imagine how much worse it's got in the more than a decade that has passed. And you're seeing it. Like, I travel across this whole country. I see everywhere, and everything is being diluted to a degree with this cheap foreign labor, unskilled. Like entry level positions have been eliminated. And just on, like, when I walk the streets of Toronto, you have to be very careful there, because there's a lot of these certain types of people that are whizzing around on scooters and bikes with a backpack with skip the dishes on their back. And they're riding around like they're in a third world country, not obeying traffic laws, sidewalk laws. And it's actually quite dangerous being out there right now. And it's all for the servitude of the ruling class. That's what's going on. They want basically a second class citizenry in this country. to do their bidding and be at their beck and call. And that's exactly what we're seeing right now with these people being brought over. This is Canada. This is a country of immigrants, but you speak the language, you honor the laws, and you are a skilled worker. You contribute something. These people do nothing but take, and people are getting very upset with it because it's visually jarring seeing an underclass of people coming out of the shadows now. Like, they're living 20 to a house sometimes, probably even more. I've heard horror stories out in Brampton of a guy that had 170 people in a bunk bed situation. And this is slave labor. This is modern slavery. And so these people are not doing themselves any favors by coming over here and being exploited. And it's not good. You don't deserve to be a second-class citizen, but you also have to earn your way into Canada, and that's by being a contributing, tax-paying member of this country.
Yeah, a lot of what you're saying, I've heard from reporters who've reported on this issue of the Indian immigrants get told something, and then they end up being exploited, whether it's by universities or their own people who wish to capitalize off their labor. But I completely agree with what you're saying in terms of I think we could stop immigration for 10 years and we'd be perfectly fine. And I reject the whole idea of we have to continuously bring in more immigration for population growth. And before I get to my next question, I want to bring up tetraphobia is the practice of avoiding instances of the digit 4. Most common in East Asian nations and associated with death. And the photo is of an elevator keypad or a phone, elevator panel without the number 4. My other question was going to be, with everybody, talking about this now in both the United States with South American immigrants, illegals, and Canada with illegal East Indian immigration, people are okay with talking about this now. People are mostly okay with saying there's too many people here. There's people who have podcasts that are Indian out in Brampton, as you mentioned, saying there's too many people of my race here. People are more comfortable talking about that. Is there anything that's still taboo to talk about? I feel like we've come a very long way, and I've mentioned this on several podcasts, that we've come a very long way in just the past year through comedy mostly, that we can say pretty much anything we want. What topics do you think the higher-ups, the powers that be, still don't want us to talk about?
Taboo? The ultimate taboo right now is the truth. It's absolutely the truth, and saying it out loud, because nobody wants to be dealing with not being able to get proper care at a hospital. Nobody wants to be dealing with not being able to feed your family properly by having the food bank cleaned out by people that are just abusing the communist system that's being enacted on a daily basis here. When I go to the gas station, I always fill my vehicle because the gas prices are literally rising by the day, by the hour. Like, when you go to work in the morning and by the time you come up at night, the price has risen. And I know what's radicalizing people right now in not being afraid to speak their mind anymore is the truth. Is when you go to the grocery store and you walk the aisles, it is a somber fucking errand to run. People are miserable. They're pissed, and seeing the prices of stuff is just, it's inflationary rage, absolute rage. I buy minimalist groceries. I am shopping local. I am bartering and trading for my sustenance these days because I refuse to pay the exorbitant prices that are happening right now. And there's no reason for this. And it goes to the baseline of gas. When the price of gas is more expensive, everything becomes more expensive. And that's all you need to look for as a metric. You don't have to be some genius stock market dickhead to be telling us what's going on. You just need to look at gas prices and know that when it's gone up 500% for some items, it's all because of gas prices. And They're not doing anything. None of the parties are doing anything to curb this, and it's just accelerating at a massive rate.
Before I let you go, I agree with all of that, by the way. Before I let you go, I want to ask you about your trip to Las Vegas. I want to ask you about the Speedo. I want to ask you, people are going to see footage. They're going to see you
in my bathing suit,
in a bathing suit, in pit vipers as well. Is that
actually no?
Is that a casual?
Those weren't pit vipers. Those are Ray-Ban Tortugas, the very same ones that Magnum PI wore on his show back in the 80s.
How did you obtain these?
They were a gift from a very good friend.
So you stole them. That's fine. Stole them from a museum somewhere. What was the context that I'm missing? Is this your regular swimming attire? Do you have the Speedo in the trunk, a la Workaholics?
Look, I got a couple different ones that I bring on the road, and what happens is, when you do as much traveling as you have a 24-hour go bag. Whether I'm on the road or at home, it's just something that's always packed. I've been to Burning Man many times. I've done 6 burns, and
is that what they call them?
Burning Man is about radical self-expression and radical self-reliance. And so to go out to the festival, you need to be completely prepared for the elements, life, everything. And when you leave that place, life is just easier than it is out on the desert. And so I'm ready to handle anything at any time. And so I have a bag with everything I could possibly need for 24 hours and beyond, depending. And a bathing suit is one of those things. I wind up in a lot of exclusive, cool places, and there's usually hot tubs or pools or lakes or something like that. And you don't want to be swimming in your underwear like an idiot. And these bathing suits nowadays, like I got off them a long time ago. Everybody used to make fun of how skinny my legs were. And when you're younger, there's a bit of body shame at it. But as I got older, I'm like, God damn it, these legs have gotten me everywhere I've ever needed to go, and they look great in a dress. And I'm not gonna hide them anymore. And when you wear those baggy board shorts and you go in the water, you might as well be wearing a diaper. It should take you back to when you were 2 years old, crapping and pissing in your pants, because you just feel gross. And a Speedo is nice, it's tight, and it can dry out within minutes in a hot enough sun. It's great. So I always have a couple on me. And what had happened is we had landed in Vegas and we weren't able to check into our hotel at the time. So we had about 6 or 7 hours to kill before our show that night. And one of our friends hooked us up with exclusive VIP passes to the pool party at the Wynn. And that's like a real classy place on the Strip. And we went in there, and so I don't have anywhere to change. So I had it in my backpack. And when we were getting in, I'm getting patted down by security, as I do everywhere I go. They were like, what, you don't got any shorts on? I'm like, I got shorts. They're in my bag. I'll change into them. So I went in, and, well, we got there, and then Brett Forte asked me, hey, did you bring the American flag Speedo? And I was like, you know what? I did. And he's like, well, it's Memorial Day, so better go saddle up, partner. And so instead of wearing the other Speedo that I wear for comfort, I was like, all right, well, let's celebrate Memorial Day down in Las Vegas. And so I came out. I had my passport on me still, so that's why I was rocking the fanny pack, because you don't just leave that laying around at a pool party. And then my keys to my life that are always on my chain, I chain those on too. So, but I did keep my combat boots on because I didn't feel comfortable walking around thousands of people not wearing my Banes with the composite toe. And yeah, as soon as I walked into this massive pool party, it just I upset the order of things. And you can go look at the footage. I walked up to the pool, and there was a rise. Even David Guetta didn't get these people going this hard. Me and my unit and my lily white ass cheeks hanging out just absolutely blew this place away. And I had women coming out of the water and literally licking me. They could taste the greatness in the air. And all these other people, there was probably the most delicate platter of scattered ass being served up at that pool party that I've ever seen. Like, these women's, you could see like the wrinkle to their pussy next to their bikini line, and nipples were hanging out, and it was like obscene amount of beauty there. But these women all look constipated. Nobody smiling. All the dudes there were just sitting there, like, nobody smiling. There was nobody even really talking. Everybody just staring at each other. And the dudes with good bodies were just roided out, with their rental muscles. Whereas here I am, I've put time in the gym, but this is a working man's body. This is a working man's body that has given me a life that I can be proud of, and I've prospered with it. And then to see it, like, I haven't hit any sun really in Canada. That's another topic. So I'm pretty lily white, but I went out there and just busted a move. Got down with my bad self, had a good time, and went around, freaked them out. Took a picture with a couple of the waitresses that were rocking American themed bikinis, and then we got out of there. I had to leave. One of the Win employees came up to him. He saw me putting on my pants. He's like, "What are you doing?" Like, keep rocking it, because as an employee, he was enjoying. Like, he enjoyed the vibe, and like, I'm talking, like, these were like $500 a ticket to get in. There's like $1,000 bottles of rosé going around, $120 platters of chicken fingers, and here I am, the best part of the show. Alberta boy coming down there rocking with my cock out. Yeah, and so I would have stayed there later and started pushing people into the pool, but we had a show with Brian Holtzman. We were opening for him that night. The living legend, still in his prime.
Are the others, young Brett and Brendan, are they able to capitalize on your vibes that you're putting out there? Are they able to live up to the expectations or the standard that you're putting forth?
You goddamn right, because none of us is the fat danger cat, and both Brett and Brendan, Uncle Hack as he's known in the media, are they work out on a regular basis. They're in shape, and you need to be doing what we're doing. The schedule we've been cutting and the shows that we'd be doing. You can't be a jolly fat ass or a fat drunk or a drug addict to do this. And unlike the critics who live in a morbidly obese environment, this is why they're upset. Is they see three guys having a good time, and they don't want that, because laughter is contagious and it's involuntary, and laughter can't be controlled. And that is essentially why the government right now needs to really get a lid on stand-up comedy. But genie's out of the bottle, daddy.
Have we retired the glove? I haven't seen it recently.
In that footage, you goddamn right, I was rocking a leather glove.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right,
anytime I'm performing on stage, the show doesn't start till I put on that fucking glove.
Does it change your personality once it comes on? Does it?
It doesn't change my personality. It just turns the volume up. I wish I could. Yeah, this setting goes to 11. Our amps go to 11.
Why don't you just make it go higher then?
One higher.
What's his face? The guy from Spinal Tap, and the one who's from The Simpsons recently released a song, and it was not good. It was not good. As a Spinal Tap character, he's trying to keep that alive.
Isn't he 80 years old now?
Yes, and he no longer does any of the black voices on The Simpsons because that's racist, apparently. So he doesn't do Dr. Hibbert or anything like that.
So, Andrew, this is the other beautiful part: is that's a human's base setting is racist across the world. everybody's racist. Nobody is not racist, and they're using this as a barometer to with your social credit score. Is like you say one word out of line, and the thought police paint you with that brush. They tar and feather you, and I'm actually relieved that the media has now just like slandered and libeled me and tried to destroy me by feathering me with this, because I don't need clothes to be in fashion. My fitness is my fashion, and I'll go up in front of the judge naked as a jaybird and stand just the same as I would in a Valentino suit. You know what I mean? Like they cannot take that away from me, and I've earned it. And when you go to Sam Walker Live on Instagram across all platforms and you watch that footage, you'll see like this is what a working man's body looks like, and I am at peak performance all the time.
It's true. They've really broken the seal, and it's happened, I think, now with the latest Middle Eastern conflict.
Very racist going on over there. Extreme forms of racism.
The powers that be have inadvertently made it okay to really critique anything, and I think this is the last thing that they wanted when they started calling people racist and sexist and anti-gay. USA, go away. And it's had the opposite effect, that these words don't really mean anything anymore. And I think what's happened in the latest endeavor in the Middle East is now you can people are openly criticizing Israel. People are openly criticizing Hamas and Palestine. So whoever was trying to pull the strings in terms of speech, they really shot themselves in the foot, I think, by just, anyone who criticizes anything is mean.
Exactly. And the other thing they really blew is the fact that they're trying to stifle TikTok. That means that they've lost control of the narrative, and information is getting out way too fast and way too quickly and sticking to the younger generation. The fact that they're trying to even take it down or fathom even bringing it out just shows the hubris of these people. And there is no going back. And there is no you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't on any of these hardline wedge issues that are now just like everywhere you go. You have to have an opinion on something, and you have to be on a team. And it's like, I'm on team humanity.
I thought you might say trans there, team trans. I thought that's what you might have.
Team trans? Who are they?
Team trans is a mixture of butch WNBA players and male track athletes that race against young girls or swim against them in many cases.
Yeah.
And
you want to see the definition of a TERF, a trans exclusionary radical feminist? You go hanging out at a lesbian bar. It's weird too. It's really weird too that all these trans men are lesbians. Weird. Very weird.
That happens. You might just say that they're women.
Yeah, it is unbelievable how far and how fast this has gone, and it is absolutely an agenda, and it's the truth. And you can't deny the truth. You can't deny nature. The other thing I want to quickly talk about is the weather. This is the other thing.
Okay.
This is the other thing. It is correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe some of the viewers can do a little research here because I'm not in front of a laptop. But didn't Environment Canada change its name to Environment and Climate Change Canada?
They did. Catherine
and now,
McKenna, yep.
Yeah, but now I think they've dialed that back, because I looked on the website and it was just it's back to Environment Canada. It doesn't have the logo on it anymore.
Are you sure they changed it, or did they just change the title to?
Maybe. Look, the branding's not out there as forcefully as it used to be, is what I'm saying. The climate change, they've kind of dropped. They're quietly going against it. But that's the next big thing, is they are pushing the weather as the enemy. And, there's a big difference between... there she is.
Point Government of Canada, protecting and conserving our natural heritage, predicting weather and environmental conditions, preventing and managing pollution, promoting clean growth and sustainable environment.
Predicting weather. Why don't you predict the animal behavior while you're at it?
What's interesting about that, Sam, is that the specifically in the U.S., I'm not sure if Justin Trudeau does anything in terms of climate change, initiatives. I think they just bury that money somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
But in the United States, one of the initiatives that they have done, this is after the Biden administration said that we're going to end fossil fuels, and then they dial it back, and then they say, oh, we're going to create all these electrical grids. They never do that. But one of the things that they do is called carbon capturing. I'm sure you're familiar with this, where they literally just take air, separate it allegedly at the molecular level, separate the carbon in it, and then bury the carbon underground or inject it into cement. And that
Fucking
is their
fairy tales.
That is their way of fighting
fairy
climate
tales.
change. They're just
It's
capturing
all
air.
it's all horseshit. Recycling, fairy tale.
True.
All of that stuff just goes directly to the dump. All it takes is one pudding cup lid in the fucking cardboard, and it's ruined forever. And people are moronic. They can never do it. So, but let's go to weather manipulation, because we are definitely seeing weather manipulation. And two concrete examples I can give you is the first warm day in Canada, and all those fires sprung up right on cue. And once again, they protest too much in that they're making too big they're trying to scare people, and they're on such a time frame that they got to do it. The first nice day, suddenly all these fires, like
right. Yeah.
the fires start near the middle to the end of summer, and you're trying to get the party started in spring. That's where the agenda's gone. And these sons of bitches are saying, like, the fire lived quietly underneath the permafrost, and then when everything thawed out again, the fire came back to life. And it was a lightning strike. Well, let me tell you something about lightning. It comes around in a fucking rainstorm. It's just it's happy horse shit. It is really absolutely happy horse shit.
Because they found people who started several of those fires.
Yes.
And in Quebec specifically is the one I'm thinking of. And what was very interesting is I thought the same thing. And they really don't want you to go with what's before your eyes. They don't want you to, just like the economy. Oh, everything's overpriced. Everything's too expensive. But, our job numbers, they're so good. Forget that COVID and lockdowns and everything happened. But our job numbers are so good that they act as if people didn't experience 25, 30 degree weather before. And I remember saying the exact same thing. Yeah. It's been hot for a week, and then they're saying, oh, it's so hot right now that the fires are just across the nation.
Yeah, that jolly fat ass Bill Gates is trying to block out the sun in any way, shape, or form he can do. I remember like 10 years ago, he was talking about putting dust up into the atmosphere, like some sort of chalk.
That was
and anytime they're saying, like, don't go out in the sun, that means go out in the sun, because the sun is the ultimate giver and bringer of life on this plane of existence. That's what it does. You're supposed to go outside. And this brings me back to contrails and chemtrails. Mm-hmm. And a chemtrail, you can see those. And the reason for that is, it just came to me the other day, is on a rainy day or when it's overcast, you don't want to go out. You'll stay in, you'll go shopping, but they want you staying at home. They don't want you going out. They don't want you interacting with people. Hence, they don't want people going to comedy shows and having a collected experience. And so with the manipulation of the weather is it blocks out the sun. It keeps people rainy. And then when it does get really hot out, now they're using the sun and the temperature. You're saying 25 degrees. There will come a time within the next 2 years that we are not allowed to travel from Calgary and Edmonton because it will be too hot out. They'll be like, oh, it's 30 degrees out. You can't travel that far because you might break down and die by the side of the road. And it's too dangerous. An example of this with fires are so effective is because the smoke in the air is the literal advertising. You could see it, you can taste it, you can smell it. And fire is scary. It's been that way since the beginning of times. Fire has been the most important thing for everything we've done. Like, we need fire for everything, to manufacture, to make, to cook, to eat. It is a very primitive and powerful symbol of what the world is. And do you think the first guy that discovered fire went to the tribe next door and showed it to them? No, he kept that shit as secret as possible. And he told everybody in the tribe, you know what? If you want the fire, go over the hill and yell at the moon for half an hour. And that'll get the fire. The fucking shaman, the medicine man, whoever. That's what it was. And so they've been holding on to technology since the inception of civilizations. And we're no farther ahead. And this is a projection of power. And World War II, they were able to manipulate the weather. They did it for tactical bombing and stuff like that, and to muddy the roads for marching armies, make things more difficult. And they had that in a lock back in the 40s, let alone the way they are now. There's probably interconnected systems on different continents, and you can't mess with the truth. And the weather is the truth. And the more you mess with nature, the more it'll come and bite you in the ass. And so when you do get extreme weather, they blame it on climate change. And it's like, it's your fucking monkeying with nature.
Well, I recall during the Beijing Olympics that they were cloud seeding and trying to stop weather in all sorts of ways and get rid of pollution
and clouds and stuff like that.
Yeah,
they were shooting. They were shooting like payloads at clouds and stuff like that.
It's not exactly a hidden thing, but when it's talked about, it's you get the old conspiracy theory thing going. And I also wanted to mention, when you mentioned Bill Gates, I remember in around 2009 there was an article from 2009 that I researched, and it's very hard to find now. Bill Gates was looking at investing in gigantic pumps in the ocean that would shoot salt water high into the air to deflect sun particles. And there's been so many different theories, and sun rays, I should say, so many different theories to find ways to reflect sunlight to prevent the Earth from overheating. And we can even go back to the old information of the ancient Sumerians, those theories of digging up gold for an extraterrestrial force who wanted to hang the gold in the atmosphere to reflect sunlight to prevent their planet from warming. And that stuff came out as an idea. And this is like, I want to say 2009, 2010, when the Joe Rogans of the world were first talking about these conspiracies. So this stuff has been around a long time. And as you know, fully, I'm sure, is Jesse Ventura trying to get into HARP, one of the greatest clips of all time, where he's demanding he get access into the weather, the highly classified weather stations. I'm a former governor. You have to let me in. It's been around, and now they changed the name of chemtrails, because everybody around like 2015-ish, I think 2017 was really into chemtrails, and like, that doesn't exist. And then they changed it to what, high altitude aerosol injections or something like that.
Yeah, you just pay attention to the sky, and there's a lot of like unnatural cloud formations in the fact that they're like so uniform. They look like manufactured. And in fact, they are manufactured. And like when you're out in the wilderness, you could see clouds. You see real clouds. But over cities and major metropolises, and it's a way to fuck with the farmers as well. It's another thing. Like, they're doing all. This world is coming to ruination, and it's the creeping march of communism. And you can literally hear it in the streets with everything they're doing. It's all textbook. It's absolutely textbook.
Are there people that you know that, because this has happened to people I know a couple times in the last couple weeks, where somebody will be saying that they work at a job and the DEI is out of control, and there's pronouns in bios and email signatures and everything, and the people will say, just ignore that stuff, and once you get in, you don't really have to do it. There's a real what's the word I'm looking for, where you succumb to something willingly, a real submission to these things. And this just, my thing is, this is how you end up in the USSR, is standing there being like, oh, we can't say that. Just go along with it. It's fine. Just go along with it.
And that's how every tyrannical regime has come into power, is good people stood by and said and did nothing. And you saw it 100% in the last 4 years. I've lost friends and family, lifelong friends over this stuff, because I deem them the new racists, Andrew. They're the new racists because after George Floyd, you weren't allowed to judge people by the color of their skin anymore. And so they judged you for what was beneath it. And that came with the world being turned into an amusement park. And the price of admission was taking the injections.
Isn't it weird, though, how there's some people that think that people didn't know. I was watching a Don Lemon interview with Canada's Nelk Boys, and he was saying, "Well, you just didn't know. We just didn't know what we were doing."
He's a lying son of a bitch.
But we did know. The statistics were there.
Don Lemon Party.
I just go with Lamone.
Oh, that's pretty good.
But all you had to do, like, I'm not some sort of statist. I didn't take data management in the university. I'm not a statistician. All you had to do was look up some of the statistics, and this was within months of everything closing down. So, and young people not affected, not obese people not affected. Why are we doing this? And it was there. People just had to look a little bit.
Yeah, and complete control. And now that that's run its course to a certain degree, I'm still a second-class citizen in Canada. I'm not eligible. No, I'm not eligible for. I'm able to donate my organs, but I'm not able to receive an organ donation if I so needed it. And I highly urge everybody to go next time they register for their license to take themselves off the organ donors list and stop donating blood. I highly advocate for it.
Why are you no longer on it?
Because I don't give my private medical history out to anybody. That's something that, especially not the coat check girl at Earl's, who became the arbiter of enforcement in the lockdowns. They gave it to these 18-year-old girls at Earl's. They were in charge of being the government's enforcement arm for medical segregation and, dare I say, medical apartheid.
I remember the last time I think we spoke on camera was you likening it was something about the Edmonton Oilers wanting your medical information, and you said if I'm going to give up my medical information, then I better see blood on the ice. They better allow slashes to the face or something to that regard.
That was probably because you're a racist, Andrew. You probably are mistaking me with Uncle Hack.
No, it was you.
And I got to say,
vernacular.
not all white people look alike.
Okay.
But Uncle Hack and I get mistaken quite a bit in public. People think that I'm him or he's me, and so we're all guilty. Let's just say. But
it was you.
I wouldn't have said something that violent about.
You would said something to the regard of you not wanting. Excuse
me
if I'm not willing to give up my medical information to the people at the. What are they called? The Rexall Center now? I don't even remember.
I could care less about what their stadium is because I will never darken its doorway. The Calgary Flames can burn in hell for not letting me into the goddamn Saddle Dome for a year because they thought I was the filthy unwashed and that I was a second-class citizen in my own country. I'll never support them again. And the Saddle Dome has gone cashless. I only buy merchandise in cash. And so I'm not paying anything for your, let's just take a shot at it for a $13 beer. That's what I'm going to say. And that's probably for pisswarm chonga and not even something off the premium shelf.
What's chonga?
You've never seen the Robert Rodriguez movie Desperado?
Not for a really long time.
Well, that's all he's got at the bar is pisswarm chonga. And that's just happens to be my favorite beer.
I was more of a Dusk Till Dawn guy. Remember that one?
Oh, you would be.
What does that mean? I would be.
You and Seth Gecko.
Couldn't
be you couldn't be left alone in a room with a fat bank teller without raping and killing her.
I don't understand the connection.
I don't know why. You know what? I don't know why I'm getting so mean with you, Andrew. I like you, but
I'm not offended. I just want to know where the joke connects between me and that.
Because clearly you haven't seen From Dusk Till Dawn enough times if you don't know who Richie Gecko is.
Yeah, George Clooney's character.
No, that's Seth Gecko. But
Richie Gecko is then Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, you think I haven't seen that movie at least 20 times? Okay, because I have. It's encroaching on Starship Troopers territory.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So if you want to go toe to toe, dare I say, dick to dick on these movies,
let's save that one. Let's save that one for another day because I'm game for that. I growing up, I was absorbed a lot of pop culture. And to a certain degree, it influences you because you're finding out what makes you tick, and you had to buy into it at the time. Whereas now everything is like a 15-second clip at the most. Attention and time spans, discipline and motivation is essentially gone. I'm feeling really hopeful for the future because these people coming up under me, for by and large, are extremely weak-willed and easily led. And in this new world order, you just have to be smarter than the dumbest motherfucker out there.
That's fair.
So we'll always do all right.
I say that the reason songs aren't long anymore is because people, what else were you going to do in the 80s besides listen to a 7-minute ballad? But we'll have a culture war podcast in the future.
All right. I'm game for that.
We'll just whip our dicks out about movie titles and quotes for an hour or something. Thank you, Sam. Anything else you want to say before I let you go?
Yeah, follow Danger Cats Comedy on Instagram and keep up with our latest trials and tribulations and victories. We slated in Vegas. Brian Holtzman is a living legend, still in his prime, and we're going to be touring with him. We're going to be down in California in July, Brea, San Jose, Oxnard, and Los Angeles. So we shall be representing Canadian comedy, and have no fear, the ride never ends.
Turn it up, Jordan.